Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Hector Mike Experience, common sense in an uncommon world. And Mike, you and I were just kind of looking at what was happening today, and we've got the Donald Trump trial still going on. But I think the biggest news that we've got is Joe Biden and Donald Trump have agreed to a debate, or actually two
Yes,
debates.
two
And
debates.
you know, it's interesting because one of the things that they usually go through this process, which is where all the networks kind of come in, they set up the rules, and this time they said, screw you, we're going to do our own thing.
Yeah, it started a while ago. They have the Presidential Debate Commission, which has been a disaster. Both sides think it's been a disaster. I mean, there's unanimity about that on both sides. And like last time, and the other part is that they always held these debates like in late October, like after, mid to late October. And we don't have election day anymore. It's election month.
Yeah.
So, people start voting in early October, or they can vote in early October if they want. So it makes no sense. And then you've got the moderators, and, it's like one likes this one, the other one doesn't like that one. And then you have the audience. And, the audience a lot of times will drive, the people's visual response to what's going on. So, both sides decided to scrap the presidential debate commission, which I thought was great. And somehow both sides agreed to two debates right away. One by CNN and one by ABC. They got to work out who's going to be the moderator in each one. And from what I understand, they're not going to have audiences. It's going to be just like in studio. Um, the weird part, though, and this is the part that caught my attention. So the second debate, I think, is the end of September. But the first debate, which makes sense, but the first debate is the end of June, like in about a month and a half, maybe. And and what doesn't make sense to me anyway, is that neither one of these guys will be the official nominee of their party by the time they have a debate. So remember a while ago we had DeSantis debating Gavin Newsom,
Right.
and neither one of them are around now running for president. Um, you got Joe Biden, who on any given day, because of his health and everything else, people still have questions. And then you get Donald Trump, who has not only this case in New York, but others coming up that, could have an impact on where he's able to debate from. Is he going to, be outside a courtroom someplace? Is he going to be in a holding cell someplace if he keeps mouthing off at the judge the way he does? You never know with the way these judges are doing things these days. So to me, it was kind of funny that they would decide to have a debate before either one are officially the nominee of the party. And I don't know how many people. I think people will watch it, even though it's like the end of June and people want to be enjoying the summer and stuff like that. I think just for the show of it, people will watch it. But it was interest. It was an interesting development, and I think what's going to be an interesting 6 months of these kinds of things taking place.
Well, with some of the people I was talking to, they're they were wondering what the hell is Joe taking? That's going to give him the ability to stay up for 2 hours or an hour and a half to debate. And the comments that were coming out was like, whatever the heck he's taking, whatever cocktail that is, he's got to tell us. So, or someone can make it in, someone can sell it. I mean, can you imagine how much money they could make by selling that cocktail? I
Well,
mean,
I think you'll see it some morning when you can't sleep and it's 2 a.m. and you turn on TV and you see, what is it, Billy May selling whatever it is he's selling. It used to be Ron Popeil on an infomercial, and buy this one and we'll send you this and this and this, and it's going to be the Joe cocktail that
yeah,
takes an 80-year-old guy and keeps him awake for 2 hours. And as a boxer, almost. I mean,
yeah.
it's almost like when he gets into the. I don't know if maybe it's the adrenaline. I don't know. I mean, I just know that if I get to be 80, um, the last thing in the world I want to be doing is standing up there having a debate with someone for 2 hours
With Donald Trump.
with Donald Trump, who probably would still be alive when I'm 80, even though he eats hamburgers every day.
Well,
So,
and
God
yeah,
bless him.
in the comments, from folks I was in a meeting this early this morning, they're like, I mean, the last couple of weeks, there's a video of him that looks like he's shitting his pants. There's video of him doing other press conferences where he's just going off in left field, has no
Wandering
idea what
off.
he's talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah,
Yeah.
and just kind of wandering off, and his words are also wandering off, or not making much sense. But I mean, he did a good job. I thought he did a good job in the State of Union address, a lot better than I thought he would do. He was engaging. He was, he understood where he needed to hit. But mind you, he also had a lot of teleprompters. And so, in this particular situation, you have no idea, or you got a general idea what the questions may be. But at the same time, you've got someone else standing right next to you, who's going to be antagonizing you as much as he can, as he will over to Donald. And so, the as much as you can try to script this situation, it becomes a lot more difficult. And he's got to be on his A game. I mean, I'm sure that there are going to be things that the Trump administration tries to put out,
Oh
or
yeah.
tries to get him on, are things that he's going to have to remember, things he did or didn't do. So
From the off-color perspective of Mike Valenti, this could be the first presidential debate where we ask for your analysis of both of the contenders after the debate is over. Like when an athlete has to do that to make sure they weren't on any performance-enhancing drugs. We might
yeah,
want to do this after these two go at it. Just see what for no other reason, just to see what each one of them were on, so that maybe they can come up with a cocktail for the rest of us that have trouble getting out of bed in the morning.
I
It's
wonder
going to
if
be
that's the same.
fascinating to watch.
I wonder if that's the same cocktail that Mick Jagger's on, because I mean that guy's still performing,
He
and
is.
he's in his 80s. Yeah, he's still performing.
Yeah.
The other
Oh,
one I
he's
saw, this was last year, which I was blown away by, was Ringo Starr and his All Star band. I
all
mean,
star band.
I think he's 82 years old, or 83, and he's doing jumping jacks. He's on the drums.
Hmm.
It blows my
He's
mind.
he's on the Joe cocktail. Who knows?
Yeah,
I mean, but the point of it being, if these both guys want to do good for America, share your secret with all of us. To get out of bed and go, oh my shoulder, oh my leg, or whatever. Yeah, share it with us because it's going to be interesting to watch on June 20. I think it's June 27th from Atlanta.
yeah,
It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be great, great television, and then of course you'll have 2 weeks of everybody spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning, but
and
it's
you
just
got then you got the
fascinating to,
convention.
and
Then
then
you
the
have the
conventions. But
convention.
it's fascinating to me though that you usually have we want 5 debates. No, we want 3 debates. We want someone to do it, one on foreign policy. No, we want to do one someone. There's all this back and forth that takes place, and then it's like, oh, we don't want that moderator. We want this moderator. They've blown that out of the water, and credit
Yeah.
to both of them. Credit to both sides for just blowing it out of the water, and doing mano a mano and get it done. So I give them both credit, and I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
Same here. I think there's a need for it, in the sense of, I think in the Biden campaign, I'm sure they're looking at their poll numbers that have just been horrendous these last couple of weeks, and they continue to crater. And so I think in that sense, they're like, hey, let's just get out in front of this as soon as possible
Right.
and see if we can't salvage some of it. Because I think if they wait, as they normally do, wait out toward, September, October area, I think it may be too late by then for his campaign. Because
Yeah,
I don't see the economy getting any better. I don't see a lot of these numbers improving over for him. And I, certainly don't see housing a situation that is impacting a lot of folks, especially as you and I were talking about earlier this week. It's impacting a lot of minorities. That being
Mhm.
one of the biggest concerns is how do I keep a roof over my family's head?
One of the to switch into that, one of the things that has been consistent from a communication standpoint for as long as polling has been done, there are 10 core principles that people worry about. And, one is the health and safety of your family, happiness, and I think the third one is knowing that you will be someplace where you have a roof over your head, whether you're
Right.
renting, whether you're owning, whatever it happens to be. And one of the things I think, especially today, where we talk a lot about the gas prices and the food prices and that kind of thing, but for some other people, especially in the minority community, it's even more basic than that, which is, am I going to, even though I have a job, even though I may have 2 jobs, is it going to be enough to be able to keep a roof over my head month to month or pay the mortgage so my family doesn't lose their house? Because the cost is so great and the volume of housing available, especially places like California, is so low. Those are the kinds of things that are weighing on people's minds. That's why I think you see some of these numbers for the president be so as bad as they are, because in those communities, because it's not some people are like, oh, it's the transgender issue, that's why they're not voting for Biden. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I mean, they may have an opinion and stuff like that, but if you're worried about a roof over your head, that's
Right.
what you're worried. You're not worried about this other stuff. I mean,
Well, you get the
you
three
know,
basic principles, right? You mentioned 10 big ones, but the three, you want to make sure that you've got food, shelter, and clothing, right? Your basic necessities, and it really is hitting people hard on all three of them right now,
right.
on survival. And so, I'm going to jump on a little bit. This getting a little bit closer over to California. The governor had, released. It wasn't an official release of his budget, but he did do a preview of what his budget was going to look like, and it's still ranging somewhere in his numbers about 30 some billion dollars in deficit. The legislative analyst has it about $73 billion in deficit, so somewhere there. And a lot of the programs, they're going to cut them. They're going to cut a lot of public, not just a lot of what do you call them? Social services, social
Social safety.
programs.
Yes, safety net.
Yeah, they're going to cut a bunch of those. They're going to cut. They're looking to get rid of 10,000 vacant positions that they have within the state. So basically, a hiring freeze, or eliminate those particular jobs. And but so he did that last week. Then he comes around this week, and he holds a press conference on the bond measure that barely squeaked by, that would create housing, but it would also create homeless housing, but it would also create kind of other services for mental health issues with the homeless. And in that press conference, he was getting asked quite a bit of questions over by the press, asking him, well, you've already spent $24 billion on homeless housing or homeless programs, and the auditor found that there is no accountability with that money. You don't know where it went. You don't know what programs were being put together, what were the outcomes of these particular programs. Specifically, being able to know what programs worked or what programs didn't work, so that you can invest more money in the programs that did work. And so they asked him, so why is spending more money going to be beneficial? How is it going to be different this time? And he was none too happy with that particular question. And rather than kind of blame himself, he started blaming the cities and the counties for them not doing their job. And it seems surreal. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago when he had his press conference, he goes, "I'm the housing czar. The buck stops with me, and now it's you,
Great
who
point.
are the problem." Yeah, and it seems
Where
as
was
though he's trying to distance himself a little bit from the accountability that the press is now asking for.
Well, I saw his comments, the video of his comments, and they were fascinating because he was flippant, is what he was. He was flippant. Somebody asked that question, both sides questioned the accountability and the results, and his response was, well, I'm not surprised. That's why we're going to take that department and putting in my housing department. And it's like, well, wait a minute, dude. And what gets me is, have you read about that story today in any of this in the reports? No, because the press doesn't follow up. The guy stands there and says, "Oh, I'm not surprised." Well, if you're not surprised and they spent $24 billion, first of all, what did you do to make them stop wasting $24 billion? Second of all, what are you going to do to make whatever they spend going forward more responsible and accountable? And third of all, who are you going to fire? Because someone or some group spent $24 billion of our money, and you just flippantly said, I'm not surprised they didn't get anything done. Well, that's not acceptable. What are you going to do? You're going to take the same people that did this, put them in another department, and have them do it again? But nobody cares about that in this state. That's what really I think aggravates a lot of people. It's like, it's 24 billion. I'm not surprised that it didn't get anything done. Well, most places, most businesses, most governments, if you're spending 24 billion, you expect to get something out of that. And if you
Right.
don't, heads roll.
Hmm.
Whose head's going to roll? And so, it's that kind of attitude I think that makes people look and say, I wish it made people look and say, our government's out of control. Because if you're going to take this kind of flippant attitude on it, it's out of control. And by the way, the numbers that you used, I did some research. One of the things that's interesting is that he initially the order was a legislative budget analyst, I guess it is, had a number of 73 billion, and then Newsom attacked the guy for saying 73 billion. He said no, it's really 38 billion. And then when you do read the stories today, Newsom admits that it's 38 billion for this fiscal year, and then another 33 or something like that billion, which comes out the bottom line number over the course of 2 years, which is what the legislative budget analyst said was 70 billion or 73 billion, is actually 73.3 billion, according to Newsom now. So the legislative analyst was right from the beginning. And, Newsom did a tap dance on his head when he used the number, but now, yesterday he admits that the number is actually accurate. So,
Yeah.
and people forget this is just 2 years removed from us having almost $100 billion surplus.
Yeah.
Now,
I think
if that doesn't
that's a
tell you
great point.
something's wrong,
That's a
you know,
great
it,
point. Yeah.
it's like how does something, again, using a business model, any business model, using any common sense model, more importantly, if you go in 2 years from 100 billion surplus to $73.3 billion deficit, what the hell happened? What are you going to do to stop that? How are you going to fix that? I mean, that's just, it's one thing to say, oh, we had a $3 billion surplus last year, and this year we got a $2 billion deficit. Okay, things happen. But that kind of swing, what that says is they didn't have the leadership to figure out what to do with the money when they had it. They didn't figure out how to create a structure that gets them a level playing field of income coming in. This state is messed up. And we've got a governor that, by the way, the last point I would make on this, if you ever needed to know how seriously the governor takes this, Mezzaluna, mezzanotte, he finishes his press conference and he gets on a plane and he goes to Italy. That's what he
I mean,
did. He went to Italy.
he's going to talk to the Pope next week
Well, he
about
better. He
climate
better
change.
go to the Pope and say, I got 5 loaves and 5 fishes. Can you turn them into $73.3 billion? Because that's the only way he's going to get it done is a
Yeah.
miracle. But that tells you how serious he takes it. Here's the budget numbers. I'm not going to explain how we pissed away $24 billion for homeless. I'm going to blame the cities for it, and I got to go grab a pizza at Unzio's Pizzeria in Calabria. God bless you.
Well, here's and so yeah, it goes into kind of a different realm with a lot of these politicians. It's just and for lack of a better word, it's accountability. It's they're okay blaming everyone else except themselves. It's everyone else is the problem, and I think you begin to see that within our society too, where it's easier to come up with the excuse. It's easier to come up with an excuse of why something didn't happen, why something isn't getting done, why people are upside down on the credit, with debt, or this idea of, yeah, the government should pay off my student loans. It's like, okay, you took the student loan yourself, you got the education, you're benefiting from it, but oh no, I need, someone else should pay it off for me. And so it's this lack of accountability that I'm seeing, and you're getting it, and it's just becoming more prevalent with a lot of these politicians that they find it easy to blame everyone else. I mean, tomorrow, I've got to head down to Los Angeles because you got Karen Bassett's going to be holding a press conference, and she's holding a press conference because she wants more money. She's holding a conference because she's opposing a ballot measure that would allow Californians the ability to have a greater say as to whether or not politicians should increase taxes or not. And so, you know, this is what they're fighting now. They're fighting against allowing Californians the ability to make that self-determination. Yes, I want higher taxes. No, I don't want higher taxes. They just want to be at the point where they can have one of those boards and commissions that they appoint and say, we will authorize you to go raise revenue to meet X, Y, or Z. And what happens with that is they go out there and they say, okay, well, we need more money for roads, so we're going to go increase the fees here, and we're going to increase the cost here, and then the politicians get to wipe their hands, but yet everything costs more.
They absolve themselves.
Right. And
Taxation
that's
without
the lack of
representation. Where did
accountability.
we hear that before?
And that's the lack of accountability that we're getting with a lot of these politicians. And
Oh, and they
I
become a
and I
debt
just feel
trap.
it's transcending. Yeah, it's transcending
They,
to other things.
yeah, yeah. Oh, it does. That you mentioned the students that want their loans forgiven. I don't know if you saw it. Um, I think it was Columbia. You know, some of the students went up to get their diplomas at graduation, and they're up on the stage and they ripped up their diplomas.
Yeah,
And it's like, man, you know, and probably a lot of those kids, uh, I'm sure none of them paid for that education. It was either their parents or loans, which Joe Biden's going to forgive, which means you and I paid for them.
all right.
And you're right. I mean, it's like, well, I'm glad you just went through this whole process, and not that's what you think of the education that you just got. And you know, since that's how you feel, then you can pay your own bills going forward.
Right.
There's no accountability on any of this stuff. And when you have a governor that just flippantly says, "Oh, I'm not surprised that they pissed away $24 billion," you know, that's the ultimate slap in the face to
Right.
anybody, because he's just basically saying, "Oh, I knew it was a sham all along, and I knew it was you know, just a shell game of money, and we took care of some people with 24 billion, but not the people that needed it, that need homes, because we don't have any homes here." And so, you know, that's the way it is. And now I'll just put this group in with this other group, and nobody's head rolls, nobody's held accountable, nobody has to answer questions because the guy in charge isn't.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the
Yeah.
proper answer, the proper, responsible, common sense answer to the question that reporter had would have been, you know, now that we know this, this is what we're going to do differently. This is what we're
Right.
going to account for, and this is who we're going to hold responsible for not getting it done. And he didn't do any of that. He just, you know, flipped it off and then took off. And you know, as long as we let the politicians get away with that, or let the Karen Basses of the world, as you're doing tomorrow,
Yeah.
you know, stop and say, no, no, you people can't decide, you know, how much taxation you get. We're going to decide it for you, or better yet, we're going to get this group of appointed people that we've put in to take the heat from making those decisions and knowing what's better for you. Then either you know what's better for you, or the people you elect to office knows better than you. It's, you know, so it's even twice removed now in terms of
Right.
responsibility. As long as we sit and take that, they're going to do it to us. I mean, you know, just wake up, people. As long as we sit there as bystanders, you know, yells this New England patriot. As long as we sit there and take it as bystanders, they're going to do it. You know, it's only until we revolt and do
Right.
something about it at the ballot box that it's going to change.
Yeah. You're right. And do you, there seems to be like this anger or frustration now from the governor when he speaks, and part of me just believes that it's got to be all right. He's looking at it, he goes, okay, I've got a year and a half left till I leave this office. Why the hell is the economy you know, tanking right now? Or you know, why do we have more unemployment? Why are things going bad? um, why am I in a $73 billion deficit? And then he looks over across, you know, across the United States and says, damn it, now I got Joe Biden who's going to debate, you know, so his national aspirations are getting delayed. And at the same time, I mean, there's no one in office who wants to leave with in a deficit. There's no one in office who wants to leave having, you know, gas prices and food prices and everything else the way they are in California. and some of the highest, energy rates anywhere in the nation. And so I got to believe that there's a frustration setting in. There's the world is kind of spinning out of control for him. And I just, like I said, I've just seen him in the last 2 weeks. He's just become more combative, a little bit more angry with some of the questions the reporters are giving him. And I mean, I wish the reporters had started off like this, but the reporters aren't giving him aren't giving
Taking
him
his shit.
much slack. Yeah, oh no. There was that one reporter at the press conference who says, she asked a question, he answered, he provided an answer, and she goes, "You didn't answer my question." And then he went, then he tried to explain it again. She goes, "You still haven't answered my question." And so,
Hmm.
they're just not taking it anymore. They're not taking it.
Well,
I wish they had started that way, but
right. Well, I will say this. I understand why Gavin Newsom is upset. I mean, I understand it completely. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. And you just hit on it. How do you reduce the price of gas? How do you reduce the price of food? How do you create more revenue? How do you help businesses grow? Um, the answer, his only hope for all of that to happen, is if Donald Trump gets elected president and the economy goes back to the way it was in 2017, 18, and 19,
yeah,
where, housing was going crazy because the interest rates were so low. People could afford a house. You made
yeah,
300,000 a year even in California. You could afford a down payment on a house. You could afford the
yeah,
mortgage on a house instead of at 7%. Gas prices, even in California were like $2.53. You could afford that. You didn't go to the market and have to fight the lady next to you to get a thing of chicken, because so Gavin Newsom's looking at this and saying, "Well, crap! If I don't want to leave with a budget deficit, and I don't want to leave with high gas prices and homeless people and housing that we can't do and all this other stuff, his only hope is that Donald Trump gets elected president and the national economy gets better."
yeah,
If I were him, I'd be upset too, because my legacy is based on Donald Trump getting elected and the economy turning around.
yeah,
I'd be up at the winery hitting some red wine all the time if I were him. So, maybe that's what he's looking at. It's like he knows that it's not going to get better,
yeah,
unless there's some radical change at the top.
yeah,
So
yeah. It,
I'd
it
be
you're,
I'd be
you're
going to Italy too.
doesn't seem like a bad trip, but it's I know it's the California economy, with more layoffs over in the tech industry. Um, it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens and what transpires as we get into closer to election time. All the different polling that I'm seeing, the survey work, the focus groups, there's a doom and gloom. There was the lady who cut my hair. This was about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and we're just chit chatting and stuff, and she talked about inflation and how prices are, and I'm just numb. I'm just numb. And I go,
Mm,
"What do you mean by that?" And she goes, "Kind of like when you're in a bad relationship and you just go through the motions." She goes, "That's how I feel about this." She
mm,
goes, "I'm trying to figure out ways to better myself." She goes, "I'm taking classes at community college," but she goes, "But I just feel numb. That's it. Just
yeah.
going through the motions. Just trying to get by."
Just get
And
through every day.
yeah, and it really hit home. Her description of it, and just you're right. Just trying to get through the day, and not really feeling powerless about what she could or could not do. But the only thing she could do is, like I said, she's taking classes at community college in business because she figures maybe that'll help out and she can go get another job or do something else. But to kind of get herself out of the situation she's in right now.
Mm.
So
It's that's why I think I mean, honestly, I don't think it's any big philosophical thing. I don't think it's anything big on abortion and stuff like that that has people in the funk. It's what we talked about, what you just talked about. People just don't have a whole lot of optimism. They don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. Every day is a challenge, and for some people, in minority communities especially, but everywhere else, it's just a challenge and hope that at the end of the day, you don't have something that makes you wonder if tomorrow or the next month you're gonna have a roof over your head, and then what happens? It's a scary place.
yeah, it is. And Mike, before I let you go, I want to touch on this one story. that has come out of the Fresno area. So Fresno's got a minor league team called the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies decided to have something provocative as a promotion, and they called it Ladies' Night. And so in this, I know, in this thing that they decided to do, that like I said, it was Ladies' Night, and there was an attorney. Um, his name is Alfred Rava, and he was none too pleased with Ladies' Night. And so, what did he decide to do? Well, let's see here. I'm gonna try to find it. So his his uh, his client, Harry Crouch and Christine Johnson, they decided to go to the game. Now, Christine got in for free, and Harry had to pay, and he had to pay for that night, which was Ladies' Night. And so now you've got this attorney who is suing the Grizzlies for $5 million for gender discrimination. And so as I was looking through this thing, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But then I started finding that this guy has made a freaking business out of this.
Oh,
I
sure.
mean, a lucrative business out of this. So earlier in 2009, he sued the Oakland A's. The A's held a Mother's Day promotion offering free mammograms and 7,500 sun hats to women. He ended up settling this class action case with the A's for $500,000.
Hmm.
He also sued a women's golf clinic in Encinas, an adult store that was having ladies' nights and a gun range for the same promotion. He ended up suing a couple bars over in San Diego. So what he ended up finding is in San Diego, in the Gaslamp quarters, in district there,
Hmm.
bars were having ladies' nights, and they denied men the discount that they were giving ladies. And so 7 area hotspots agreed to pay him $125,000 to settle his cases. And so originally, I'm like, okay, great. Someone's suing on the gender discrimination, especially here in California. But man, this guy's made it a business.
Oh yeah, it's called sue to settle. That's what it's called. You have it a
Yeah.
lot too with people, small businesses especially, get hit with this on things like, someone will go in and check their bathroom to make sure that the rails and handicap thing is done properly. And if it's not, they'll sue. And the whole point of it is they don't want to go to court to do anything with it. People who have the businesses don't want to go, spend the money and so they settle. It's called sue to settle. It's a business model that a lot of these plaintiff attorneys will use. It's kind of ironic because I thought you were going to say after they had ladies' night there was some guy that went in dressed up as a woman and they wouldn't give him the discount and so he sued because he was discriminated against because he's LGBTQ plus plus 350 batter or whatever it is. I mean, and because that's now a thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, who do you identify with today?
Well, I mean,
But
I wonder if maybe now that we have no gender, right? A lot of different stuff in
binary,
California where it's like there's no gender, it's gender fluidity.
right,
Um, but
right.
we'll see
Yeah, I
what.
mean, actually, it could have been funny because, and again, the Grizzlies don't need the headache. They don't want the headache, So they say, okay, let's pay this guy whatever it was and send him on his way. Um, and but they probably could have argued back, hey, all a person had to do was identify as binary, which means they're neither man nor woman, and they would have got in for free. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where we are today. I mean, I'm a big advocate of gender neutral bathrooms, by the way, just because as you get older and the prostate gets a little weaker, it's like I'll go any place. But it's just me. Um, but no, I mean that's not that it's crazy, and it's. But you're right. People do make a living doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know
Um,
you work for one of the organizations there for a long
Citizens
time where they
Against Lawsuit Abuse, Kayla. Yeah.
Yeah, where they
And
would go, where you had these attorneys that would go, or they would hire people to go into these restaurants, and
right.
with the tape measure, they would measure to see if the mirror was, was at the right size, and if it was off a quarter inch, then
Yeah.
they would file a lawsuit. They would file, I mean, just for a lot of tremendous things.
Oh yeah. And again, the whole point is not to go to court. The point is, and especially with small businesses, especially minority-owned small businesses,
Right.
there's the fear of going to court. There's, if you're a small business person, there's the time you have to take to go to court. When you run a small business, you're doing everything, so that's another headache that you have.
Mhm.
And that's what they do, and so they make, by filing some paperwork, they make 3, 4, 5 grand, never have to go to court, and it becomes a business for them.
Yeah. Well, and I know for the lawsuit abusive, there's been a tremendous amount of want by the business community to try to change, get the laws changed a little bit, but they haven't. There's been I'm invent, to try to stop some of these trial attorneys from just filing all these one lawsuit after another, and it just continues to be this ongoing problem that everyone continues to face.
Well, it also clogs the court system,
Yeah.
so that people that actually have a case, or there's an actual case, gets plugged up in court because they get plugged with these frivolous lawsuits. And there are people. I mean, it's not all attorneys, but there are people like this out there that make a living doing this kind of stuff, and they do it at the expense of mostly small business people. Um,
Yeah.
and and they can't get the law changed because when you look at who spends a lot of money on legislative races, it's the trial attorneys.
Yeah.
So they have their people in there that'll protect these guys. But it's kind of funny in a way that a baseball team's trying to have, especially the minor league baseball teams, they try and come up with every gimmick possible to have
Yeah.
people. I've gone out to the Quakes games out in San Bernardino,
Mhm.
and honestly, it's way more entertaining than Dodger Stadium to me because they have all these things going on, these off-color, off-beat things. I mean, it's such a lot of fun, and it's a whole lot less expensive. And they're doing anything to bring people in. So you think, okay, let's have a ladies' night or something like that, and um, they end up having it cost them. So
Yeah. Well, Mike, I'm gonna let's end it there. But what I'll
okay,
do is I'll make sure that in the comment in the description, we'll include some of these articles on this attorney and the different places he has sued. We'll also include there a link over to an article showing the different debate dates in case people are interested. They can put it on the calendar or get ready to watch it
oh
because
yeah, buy
I'm
your
sure as we get
popcorn.
yeah, I'm sure as we get closer, there'll be a lot more coverage on this. And there's bound to be coverage, quite a bit in the next coming days, but especially as we get closer to this, and we'll see where this takes us. So it was great
It'll
seeing
be
you,
fun.
Mike. I know we had lunch yesterday over at Sam Wu in Alhambra. We had some Peking duck and
Yeah.
pork. That was fantastic.
And something else, I don't know what it was, but it was good with a
Oh, the
little
chow
plum
fun.
sauce
We
on it.
had chow fun. Yeah, we had chow fun.
That was okay.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
well, I'm gonna get myself down to LA and see
Yeah,
Karen. So if
Tell Karen we all said hello.
yeah, and unless you want to go meet me over at the pantry, we go grab some breakfast. So we'll see. I'll call you
All right, yeah,
afterwards.
let me know. Pantry sounds good.
I know I'll be right down the street. So
Let me know.
all right.
All right.
I'll call you up after this. Take care, Mike. Bye.
Okay.